I've heard a lot of people use the term cover band to describe the newest Alien movie. The songs we're familiar with and all the comforting notes we've heard before.
Get away from her, you bitch!
We all know these elements. We've got a group in an isolated space with alien or aliens trying to unravel the mystery of the location, escaping before the facility blows up, and then shooting the alien out the airlock. This is basically the template for 4 or 5 of the past Alien films. And Romulus, it's really not breaking that much new ground. In many ways, it begs the question of when does a piece of media go from a tribute to just ripping off its predecessors? It's one of the reasons why Prometheus, as controversial as it could be, it has the fan base that it does. It was coloring outside the lines, whether you see that as a success or failure. And Covenant, to many extents, was continuing Prometheus's creationist themes, while also injecting a lot of traditional elements that we're familiar with. Again, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. The question is, does Romulus stick too close to the comfortable safe zone, especially compared to Scott's last 2 offerings? For many, the familiar, this is going to be comforting and inviting, a string of scenes calling back to the most popular features in Alien and Aliens, with a dash of isolation thrown in as a setting, all the while including fresh horror spins or tense sequences, such as facehuggers attacking from underwater, or even a Don't Breathe inspired hallway navigation. The facehuggers may very well have stolen the show here from their big brother, not to say the film it's not doing a good job with the alien itself, as they do bring back the costume, puppetry, and animatronics, the kind of stuff that was utilized in the original series. Granted, these attempts to capture everything in camera may have been a little undercut by the zombie puppeteering of Ian Holmes' corpse. And I almost mean that in a literal sense, as he was a mix of animatronics and deepfakes. And this, it didn't sit well with me when they did it with Tarkin back in Rogue One, and it's not really working for me here either. I will never be okay with resurrecting a dead actor with technology to star in any movie, even with permission from their family, who, let's face it, they have their own monetary incentives for doing it. This actor did not agree to sign up for this movie. He did not agree to have his voice or likeness used in this movie. And he likely would not have performed or read these lines in the same way as this computer did it. It's the actor's face, but without his soul. And it's just as dystopian and gross as, the Weyland-Yutani group creating these alien hybrids within a lab. It's macabre, and it's kind of even undercutting the film's own message. But the film wanted Ian Holmes in there, because they wanted the familiar face of Ash to bring everything back together, back to that original movie. They want the familiar, and they want us to see what we've seen before. There's safety in that, bringing us back to that core question again. Does the movie do enough to separate itself from what came before? Character would be a good way to stand apart. As said in my Borderlands video, strong core characters can elevate okay scripts or uninspired material, or even breathe new life into the familiar. And just for the record, I said that in regards to the Guardians of the Galaxy cast, certainly not the Borderlands crew. And Prometheus has a fresh, youthful collection of alien, chowder. Director Fede Alvarez, he's mostly well known for horror, and he kind of gave us a lot of characters who mostly exist to have bursters pop out of their chests or their heads bashed in by a second mouth. There are really only 2 exceptions to this. The main characters of Rain and Andy are an unlikely brother and sister combo who are doing their best to look out for one another. Rain, played by Kaylee Spaney, has almost a protective relationship with her autistic android brother as he begins to gain newfound intelligence and motivations. It makes for a winning combination that makes you want to see them make it to the end. And actor David Johnson, he gives a standout performance as Andy, and I really do look forward to seeing him more in the future. He plays this almost split personality really, really well. Honestly, they're not really breaking any new ground with these characters, but it's at least giving us a new combination of personalities that click together in a new take on the family dynamic outside of the mother-daughter relationship we saw in Aliens. And I'd still have a hard time denying that, most of what we see, it is something that we've seen before. But you know what you've never seen anywhere else? Stuff from this channel. So be sure to like and subscribe.
Do it.
But as I was saying, most of the stuff we've seen somewhere else, and oftentimes done better. But the big thing here separating this from most tired just regurgitations is because the film is able to surprise in where it chooses to take inspiration. Alvarez pitched this movie as a merging of Aliens and Aliens, but what he didn't tell you is where the third act would be pulling from. And it is satisfyingly shocking. Some will hate it while others embrace how it redefines the mythology and creates a new way to look at events through a fresh lens. And, there are going to be those that hate it just for including parallels to a controversial film just in any form whatsoever. And with that, we're now going into spoiler territory. I kind of need to go into spoilers to really break down what I mean here and where I'm coming from. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I recommend you do. Your enjoyment will be largely dependent on how you view this amalgamation of these three sources. But you should still see it for yourself. Feel free to come on back, because we are in the end game here, as Doctor Strange would say. The first act of Romulus is, as promised, pulling from Alien. For the most part, it's a locked room horror, with the protagonist learning about the alien, being impregnated by facehuggers, and then stalked by a xenomorph. The second act then ramps it up, and it transitions into an Aliens inspiration. A horde of aliens in a hive, as it plays up the action over horror, and our protagonists are forced to, blast through all the aliens with high-powered munitions. This includes a great sequence of navigating anti-gravity acid blood, and then having to fight up an elevator shaft. It really is creative. But it's in the third act, though, that I think the movie is really earning its keep. Again, back to the cover band analogy. They were choosing to play a song everyone, may not know, or, even more daring, a song not everyone even likes. Because the third act, it's solidly a Prometheus tribute. A trifecta of inspirations. Alien, Aliens, Prometheus. All combined into one film. Now, call me a Prometheus fan, or apologist, I guess, in some camps. But I have always kind of had an affinity for this movie. It is the anti-Romulus. A film that really wanted to try for something different. None of the mainstays of the franchise I mentioned before. No singular locked room horror, no alien, no countdown to escape, no blowing monsters out of airlocks. Instead, Prometheus was more of this philosophical movie, with very strong themes of discovery and creationism. It wasn't really subtle in this. It was practically beating us over the head. Rooted in David's perspective as a robot who's not appreciated by his creators.
Why do you think your people made me?
We made you because we could.
Can you imagine how disappointing it would be for you to hear the same thing from your creator?
Or Dr. Shaw, who can't have children but still believes in a higher power.
Guess you can take your father's cross off now.
Why would I want to do that?
Because they made us.
And who made them? I can't create life.
Yet, Prometheus wasn't without its problems. One of the many issues that people had with it was a lack of answers. Or in the case of Covenant, I guess, answers they never were really even asking for. And Alien Covenant kind of got into trouble because it was implying that, a human android had created them. It stripped away a lot of the mystery and that natural terror they had. Prometheus was double criticized for never solving its mystery of what this weird black goop was. A driving narrative plot point with near no answer. And I don't know, maybe they answered this in like some of the expanded novels or the comics or something, but those don't really matter. As proven with Star Wars, such expanded media, it only really exists as canon until something in the film timeline comes along and just completely retcons it. In a film like Romulus, which seems, just really, really adverse to risk, it is shocking to see it in that third act try to tackle these subjects. Maybe not exactly giving us answers, but maybe asking new and exciting questions. Rook, Ian Holmes', zombie, is working to distill down alien DNA to create a higher human life form. Rook creates this strange black liquid that looks suspiciously exactly like the substance seen in Prometheus. The result, when injected into a pregnant woman, is a creature that also looks suspiciously like the engineer. The same tall stature, pale skin, and black eyes. This is the moment that the film shifted for me. From a decent tribute to something finally brave enough to expand on the mythology while creating an exciting sequence that's true to itself. This opens the door to so many questions. Where do the engineers come from? Is their origin from mixing their DNA with alien DNA? In Prometheus, we see Dr. Shaw and her crew enter an engineer ship. Inside, we see a mural of the alien. How is there an image of a xenomorph there if David, later creates them? Later, they find a head of an engineer and try to experiment on it, and it bleeds this black blood. Shaw runs the engineer DNA and finds it matches against the humans. Her conclusion? That human DNA must have come from the engineers who created them.
I was wrong. We were so wrong.
I'm going to say, don't trust Shaw. Her hypothesis is based on missing information. Even she admits this at the very end of the movie, and it's one of the reasons she decides not to return home, but instead seeks out more answers from the engineers. She never really gets those answers because David decides to use the bioweapon on the engineers and, decimates the entire population, and then murders Shaw as part of his experiment into breeding aliens. So, bummer. Yet, Shaw still says this.
They created us. Then they tried to kill us. I deserve to know why.
But what if they were never trying to destroy humanity? What if they're just trying to bring us to what they consider to be the next phase of human evolution? What if they were not coming to kill us, but to save us? Sorta, at least in their eyes.
We are the future, Charles, not them.
In Romulus, the film asks the question of if aliens predated the engineers and possibly created them rather than the other way around. And who knows, maybe like the alien now, the engineers need another life form in order to procreate. So let me submit to you, alright? Maybe the engineers are born through alien DNA combined with similar species. Maybe that is why they engineered Earth in the first place in Prometheus. Maybe that's why they were going to attack Earth. Not to kill them, but to, repopulate themselves. You could even go for a massive stretch and say, hey, what if the humans predated the engineers somehow? And they were exclusively created through the merging of both human and alien DNA. Or maybe they did just see it as taking alien DNA and they're going to combine it with humans to create something new. Who knows? When David unleashes that weapon on the engineer city, the creatures that burst forth, they look like xenomorphs, but they aren't fully formed. Same in Prometheus, when all the creatures spawned from the goop resemble either face huggers or almost like these proto-aliens. It's almost like the DNA of the perfect organism is trying to get back to its perfect form. Did David create them? Like Rook, did he just extract the DNA and recreate them? Kind of like bringing a species back from extinction, like the frozen mammoth. Even the director had this to say. I was hoping people picked up on the whole engineer part of it. The black goo is the root of the whole thing that was introduced in Prometheus. It's the root of all life, but also, particularly, the xenomorphs come out of that thing, which means it has to be inside them. It's almost like the xenomorphs, pollination, we'll say. So we thought, if it affects your DNA, and the engineers clearly came out of the same root of life, it made complete sense to me that the offspring of a human and a xenomorph was going to look like that. End quote. And is any of this accurate? Who knows? This is a bunch of maybes. This is me spitballing. But the mystery and the speculation is kind of more fun than the answers. Sometimes, just like in the case of the Joker, having the real story, it can be more disappointing than having that multiple choice.
Sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
In many ways, Romulus feels like a take two on Alien Resurrection. It's playing with a lot of similar ideas, such as a research station that's cloning aliens, and then they all sort of get out of control and escape. It plays with the idea of human-alien hybrids, but for some reason, Alien Romulus, its conclusion, it feels more like an accidental finale to Ridley Scott's duology, in that it's giving us non-answers to questions we maybe never even wanted answers to in the first place. And don't get me wrong, I would still actually love to see Ridley Scott come back and finish off that trilogy and show David's final act and final plan. That cliffhanger needs to be resolved. Do not leave me hanging, Disney. For now, though, I think Romulus suffices as a continuation that's blending both Scott's aborted series and what has come before. Romulus proved to be the connective tissue between the philosophical and near religious questions asked by Prometheus and the grounded, more genre-defined sci-fi of the first two movies. It takes things back to the basics, while at the same time, thankfully, pushing things forward in an exciting direction. And many who know this channel may be wondering why I bothered to go onto this weird tangent on, alien mythos and world building. Yeah, that's a fair point. This is mostly a film history and critique channel. But this is what movies that stay with you do. They spur creativity and build on old franchises with new and exciting entries. For me, Romulus did just that. It was a good slice of what we knew for those first two acts before it then came in, clocked us upside the head, and came at the series in the third act in a new way. It was risky, but I respect that. And I think that's all I got for this one. We'll see if anything's confirmed, denied, or wild speculation when Alien Earth lands on FX in the near future. It's supposed to take place before Prometheus, I believe, so we'll see if, any of this ties into, Romulus or anything. Or if anything I said is in any way accurate. Who knows? Who can say? Please like and subscribe for more historical film flashbacks and modern movie analysis. Until then, please, as always, keep those reels turning.